Women's Health on the Go. Today's video is about HPV virus. And the reason why I want to definitely do this video is because this is a really, it's a hot topic. It's very common. And when people are diagnosed with this from a pap smear, they are very concerned, which is rightfully so. But I'm hoping that on some level I can put your mind at ease just a little bit when it comes to the HPV virus. So let's generally talk about the HPV virus. HPV virus, there is about 100 strains of the virus, to the warts on your feet, to the warts on your hands, to genital warts, and then there is about 16 of them what we consider high-risk HPV. Now these high-risk strains are the strains that we know that can cause the changes that can lead to cervical cancer. When you get diagnosed with HPV, it doesn't mean that you're going to get cancer. It's just, we just know that it's the virus that can cause the changes that can lead to cervical cancer. And it can take at least 10 years for it to even become cancer, okay? One other thing, there's lots of things, but I've got so much to say about this. First off, it's very common. 80% of the female population is going to be exposed to this virus at some point in their lifetime. So let's just take the population of the United States. I don't have statistics this year, but a couple years ago there was about over 156 million women in this country. Now if you think about 80% of them are going to be exposed to this virus at some point in their lifetime. The number of women who had cervical cancer in this country that year, and it typically is around the same amount of people, was around 22,000 women. Not that those women are not important, because their lives are very important. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that if you take all those women that have been exposed to HPV and the amount of people that actually end up getting cervical cancer, it's a really small amount of people. And the reason is because of what we do. We do pap smears, we do screening, and if you have an abnormal pap smear, you have to have a colposcopy. So that being said, and I always say that, most of the research is done on women because, we're the ones who end up getting cervical cancer. There's no real research done about men because there's not like a huge incidence of penile cancer at this point. So, but I always say that if 80% of the female population have it, then 80% of the male population have it. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you're having sex with, because we're all having sex with each other no matter what gender you're having sex with. So just think, 80% of the population at some point in their lifetime is going to get the HPV virus. How do we get the HPV virus? We get the virus from having skin-to-skin contact with someone who has the virus. You can have the virus around your mouth, on your fingers, on your genitals. So even sometimes people will come and say to me, well, they've never had sex, meaning that they've never had penetration sex, but they've had oral sex given to them. Well, that person may have had the virus on their mouth. There's always that possibility that they can still get it. So it's still really important that you definitely get your pap smear regardless of your sexual history, if that makes sense. So that being said, so 2 points going here, okay? One, it's very common. Two, it can take at least 10 years for it to actually turn into cancer. And then, I forget what the other one is, but we'll just keep going, okay? So pap smear screenings have changed a lot over the years as well. So right now, we don't start pap smear screening until you're 21. We do it every 3 years, and then at your 30, we do code testing, which is pap and HPV testing every 5 years. And that will continue to be that way as long as you've never had an abnormal pap smear. It can change various kind of ways if you have, but that's another whole video and conversation. So I tell people that as long as you go and get your pap smears when you're supposed to, the chances of you end up having cervical cancer is very minimal. Is there times when one person can go and then a year or two later they end up with cervical cancer? It does happen. It's very rare, but can it happen? But it's not very often that happens. But I always tell people, as long as if you get an abnormal pap smear, as long as you go and if they say have a colposcopy, as long as you have the colposcopy, if they say come back in 6 months, if they say come back in a year, or whatever it is that they tell you to do to how do you follow up, then the chances of you getting cervical cancer is very minimal. There was another point that I was going to say, and I can't remember what it is, but it'll pop back into my head. Oh, some things that you can do. There is research that whenever anybody is diagnosed with HPV, I always tell them to start taking a folic acid supplement. Folic acid has lots of various benefits. Most people, when they hear of folic acid, they think of pregnant women. They take it to help prevent neural tubule defects and Down syndrome, but it also has a lot of great other health benefits. And one of them is it will help prevent changes, those changes that can go towards cervical cancer. It can help prevent those changes from happening. And if you have any changes, it can help repair those changes. So that's very, very important. 2, cigarette smoking. For anybody who smokes cigarettes, you obviously know all of the various bad things that it can do to our body. But one of the things is it is linked to cervical cancer. When you smoke cigarettes, it causes lots of changes in the body, and one of them is your immune system, and it can help progress the HPV virus to having those changes that can lead to cervical cancer. So if you've been diagnosed with HPV, it's one incentive to try to quit smoking. I know that quitting smoking is very, very hard. It's a very big challenge. I totally get that. But sometimes I say to people, maybe this is just an incentive to help you quit. So folic acid, no smoking cigarettes. And the third thing, which a lot of people sometimes look at me and go, okay, that's not going to happen, especially with people that are in long-term monogamous relationships. There is research that shows that people even in long-term monogamous relationships, if they have the HPV virus, if they consistently use condoms, it helps with the HPV and those changes. Again, I know that most people who are sexually active in a long-term relationship and are not using condoms, they're likely not going to use them, but I always tell people it is my job to tell you. Anybody who's not in a long-term relationship, I highly recommend using condoms until you definitely know that you're both in the clear of lots of STDs. I know that sometimes it can be challenging, various times of using condoms because a lot of people don't like using them, but I do highly recommend them to help prevent HPV and multiple other STDs. So that is HPV in a very short, I think 8-minute video. I hope that answers some questions for you about that. Of course, if you have any questions or any concerns, please reach out to me. My website is www.womenshealthonthego.com. There's a contact page. There's my email there as well, which is Lori@womenshealthonthego.com, and I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. Or if you have a lot of questions, of course, you can always make an appointment with me, and I love talking about this stuff. I love helping women empower themselves and empower their body. So reach out to me. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video. And remember, women's health matters. Our bodies matter. And make sure that we take care of ourselves. Have a great day. Bye-bye.